we have as our guest speaker tonight a gentleman all the way from Washington, D.C., who is a vegan advocate for a number of years, social media influencer. And the presentation title is Animal Advocacy in the Digital Realm. So without further ado, let me hand over to John Oberg. Thank you, John.
Hey, thank you so much, Brian. Really great to be here, to be chatting with you and all of the wonderful people here from London and abroad. And I'm going to share my screen here to get my presentation going. So please bear with me for 1 second. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. And can you see me in the corner? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So that is me. Those are my social media links. And I'm sure you can find all these links later or in the last slide of the presentation, but also I'm sure Brian will share with them with you all later. So I want to say thank you for being here. I have been to the lovely country of the UK and spent some time in England. Fun fact, I actually took a boat from New York City to Southampton in 2018 and spent a few days in London and loved it. And I am excited to actually be back there in 1 month. So I will be there for a few days. Just check out the sites and hanging out with a friend of mine who lives there. So anyway, love London, and I was also surprised at how vegan friendly the city was. It was really astonishing. There were vegan options everywhere, so it was really exciting to see that. So I want to talk to you about first of all, I want to talk about myself so you understand who I am and my background, and then I'll get into the social, advocating for animals in the digital realm. So how I got my start in animal advocacy. So my mom and I, my mom is really the one who's instilled a sense of compassion for animals in me. And my mom, the late, great Karen Oberg, she took me out to I should explain what this is. This is a picture of a television screen playing a VHS tape from like 1999, I believe. And that's me, like a little 12-year-old there with my mom. We were protesting a deer hunt at a park that we used to go to all the time. And it was my first foray into animal activism. And it really taught me that when I see an injustice going on in the world, you stand up and you do something about it. So my mom really instilled this sense of, fighting for justice for animals within me. And so number of years later, I finally got involved with animal advocacy for all animals, including farm animals. And so I went vegan about 13 or 14 years ago and immediately started handing out leaflets. That was my main form of activism. And so this is me at college campus many years ago, and handing out leaflets to people passing by. And that was something that I really found to be an effective form of advocacy for animals. And after a given day of handing out a few hundred or even 1,000 leaflets, I knew that I got many people to think about animals who otherwise wouldn't have thought about animals that day. And hopefully some of those people definitely would have changed their habits and behavior as a result. And I heard from people all the time who were impacted by the literature. So I really found that leafletting was a really powerful way to advocate for animals. Now, my animal activism these days looks a little bit different. So it's the same concept. It is getting people to take the animal's plight into consideration, and it's reaching people where they are. But instead of doing it on street corners or college campuses, I'm now doing it from behind screens. And sometimes I'm looking a little bit angry behind screens. I swear I'm not an angry person. I guess that's just my face when I'm messing around on my phone or my computer. But now my animal advocacy happens from behind a screen because I'm focusing on social media. I'm focusing on advocating for animals in the digital realm. So in this presentation, I'm going to be throwing a lot of information at you. And so luckily, Brian is going to be recording this presentation and uploading it to YouTube later. So You'll be able to go back and watch all the details for anything you missed. But during the presentation, feel free to record whatever you want, write down notes, take a picture or video with your phone while the presentation is going on, whatever you feel comfortable with, so that you feel that you can really absorb as much information as possible. And I do want to thank Brian once again for the invitation for me coming here, and also to Margaret Lee for initiating this this conversation between Brian and I. I'm very excited to be here. So what are the benefits of using social media for outreach? So we talked earlier about using outreach, the different kinds of outreach. For one, I used to do it in the physical space. I used to just do it on street corners or college campuses. Well, now I do it on social media. And why is that great for outreach? It's because it's an incredible place for education. It's for educating the people out there who don't know what animals are experiencing in factory farms and slaughterhouses around the world. So you're raising awareness. So you're getting people to understand what is happening behind these closed doors, but also you're inspiring them to change. And if you don't think that any change is happening because of social media, just ask a vegan you might know, or a few of them, and see where they got inspiration to go vegan. You will find that a lot of people found inspiration to go vegan from social media. So I know there's a lot of people who talk poorly about social media, and there are definitely some negative things about social media, that is for sure. But in terms of its ability to reach the general public about creating a better world for animals and really teaching people about what animals are experiencing, the opportunity is huge. It's also good for brand building. It's good for campaigning. So if you have specific campaigns that you're fighting for, this is a great place to do that. So for example, if you're trying to get your local grocery store to carry a new vegan burger, make that a campaign and use social media to target that grocery store. And then of course, networking. So connecting with other great like-minded people. I mean, this is a vegan group here yourselves. So you understand the importance of community and networking. And so you can do that same sort of thing on social media. Then that can help, increase your sphere of influence and make some really great connections. And the potential of social media is boundless. Over my years of using social media to help animals, my posts have received hundreds of millions of views for an average of about 50,000 per day. And I want to say that this is not magic. I don't have a PhD in social media science, and I'm not paying to run ads. This is all done because of my strategic use of social media and my constant tweaking of my approach over the years with the ever-changing social media landscape. And so while you don't necessarily have to reach 50,000 people a day, if you can go from reaching 25 people to 95 people a day, you're more than tripling your impact. And so you can make a really, really big difference for animals by using social media. And other great examples of how social media has boundless opportunity is the fact that you could spend all day, every day doing social media advocacy, and you would be just always increasing your impact. And then of course, it is a really great way of supplementing the advocacy that you're already doing. So if you're doing really solid, animal rescue work with actual animals, who are in dire need of your help, you can document that on social media. And that is only amplifying your efforts. It's getting people to understand the work that you're doing elsewhere and get excited about it. So when we talk about social media, there's two important metrics to pay attention to. There's growth and there's reach. And these are pretty simple concepts. So growth is the number of new followers that you're getting. So if you have 100 followers on Twitter today, let's say in 6 months, you have 130 followers on Twitter. Well, you've grown 30 followers. Reach is the number of accounts who you are reaching. So if your post has a reach of 100, that means 100 times people saw your post. And so these are the two most important metrics to be paying attention to all the time as you're advocating for animals on social media and in the digital realm, is how many followers you're getting and how many people are seeing your posts. Now, when you think about effective advocacy or effective strategy in the age of social media in the digital realm in today's world, you want to figure out what you want to get out of your efforts in the digital realm. What is your niche? So you really want to figure out where your interests overlap with your skills. So for example, you may have a skill of being a good photographer, and then you may have an interest in cooking really good food. So how could you take these skills and interests and make them work on social media? You could become a good food photographer. You could take really solid photos and videos of the food that you make and make an Instagram account that's just dedicated to posting the amazing vegan food that you're cooking every night. So you really want to figure out where your niche is. And there's almost an endless amount of different combinations of skills and interests that you can then take and apply it to social media. And then you also want to set goals for yourself for engagement and growth. So if you, right now, let's say you have 25 followers on Instagram, make it your goal by the end of 2022 to increase that to 50 followers on Instagram. Or if you get an average of 10 likes on your Facebook posts, make it your goal to, at the end of, this time next year, you're getting an average of 25 likes per post. Whatever the goals are, doesn't matter, as long as you're setting some goals to kind of keep yourself accountable. But then you also want to manage your expectations. You want to have growth you want to have patience, because growth and progress is going to be slow in the beginning. And that's okay. So whether or not you've been on social media, if you're not even on social media right now, if you're just going to get on social media after this presentation, or if you've been on it for 10 or 12 years, you probably understand that you're not going to shake the world overnight. You're probably not going to create a vegan world overnight. So you really need to go into this with patience and understanding about the slowness of which you will create change, but with consistency, I promise you will get there. And then remember this concept. It's you versus the algorithm. And so what this means is that your posts are only going to be seen by people if the algorithm says it can. And so when your posts go into news feeds, they are only going to be placed there if they are getting engagement. So if your post is getting no likes, no comments, no shares, then Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on are significantly less likely to place your post into the news feeds of other people. Why is that? Because social media channels and social media platforms want to keep everybody on the platforms as long as possible. And therefore, they have an incentive of putting content in front of your eyes or in front of the eyes of people that is likely to keep them there. And so they're going to put content that gets a lot of engagement there, and they're going to leave out content that doesn't get a lot of engagement. And so you need to keep this mindset and ask yourself before you post something, is this content and caption framed in a way that's going to get as much engagement as possible? And by engagement, I mean likes, comments, shares, and so on. And of course, using emotion is a really great way of doing that. So you also want to always put yourself in your audience's shoes. So while I, would love for the world to think like I do, the world does not think like I do. The world thinks like they do. And so you need to put yourself in your audience's shoes in the digital realm, because we are not our audience. And so, for example, I don't always use the V word, the vegan word. I do a lot of the time, but sometimes I use vegetarian. Sometimes I say stop eating animals. Sometimes I say try Meatless Monday. I have different approaches because that's going to reach different segments of my audience in different ways. Then of course you want to post consistently. So I would recommend scheduling posts in advance with a platform like Buffer. There's also other options like Hootsuite, Later, and so on. Scheduling posts in advance is a really nice way to keep your sanity so that every day you're not thinking, okay, what am I going to post? And so I often will schedule posts for 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And this is really, really convenient and also efficient with my time. Remember that the small stuff matters on social media and in the digital realm as well. So have your bio filled out, use the link in your bio, choose your profile photos carefully. These little things add up to actually the likelihood of whether or not other people want to choose to follow you. And then remember that effective social media advocacy is not just one and done posting. It really requires posting, but then also engaging with your audience, engaging externally, and really spending time on social media. And so, yeah, on Twitter, I will usually tweet 1, 2, 3 times per day, but I'm jumping on Twitter many times throughout the day to engage with the people who are replying to my tweets, to engage with people who are tweeting about things I'm interested in, and so on. So it's really about constant dialogue and monitoring. Now let's talk about effective communication in the digital realm. So you want to work to empower and inspire your audience, not just oppress them. So everybody on this call and in this group understands the horrors that animals are facing. And it's important to shine a light on those horrors. And I do all the time. But you don't only want to do that. If you exclusively do that, you're going to burn people out. People are going to become less interested in what you have to say over time. So you actually want to empower them and inspire them. So even if you do talk about the sad stuff, also don't always end it on such a downer note. Also work to inspire them. So for example, you could talk about, the cruelty that chickens face living in cages for their whole lives. But on the end of the caption, maybe say, you don't have to live in a way that supports this cruelty. Try vegan eggs instead. Don't go all in on any single emotion. So we just talked about not being all doom and gloom all the time. Don't always just be happy either. Have a blend of different kinds of content, because this is good because you're going to keep your audience constantly interested, but you're also going to appeal to different segments of your audience at different times. So let's say Shelly is really moved by really the sad stuff, but then, Jack really, gets moved when he sees pictures of animals living happy lives in animal sanctuaries. You want to have a blend of different kinds of content. Don't just always shoot out the same message all the time. And then of course, my number one tip for this whole presentation is to not be a jerk. Because when is the last time you saw someone being a jerk on social media and said, I want to be like that person? Probably never. So even if you are faced with a situation where you want to be a jerk, or you want to, cut someone down because they cut you down, take a deep breath, cool down for a few minutes, and really think about your response before replying, or maybe don't even reply at all. And we'll talk more about trolls later in this presentation. Also, don't make others feel judged. So this is really hard, especially in a non-vegan world. So everybody here understands the importance of advocating for animals and why we need to fight for animals. But remember that the people out there are on their own journey, and they are not on the journey that you've taken in your life. And so therefore, we need to try not to make other people feel judged. You can really have a compelling message for animals that doesn't make them feel terrible in a way. You can make them feel like they can make a difference and that they can live in a way that reflects the values that they already have. But if you're just shaming them, you might end up doing more harm than good. Then I recommend doing the 3 R's: being relatable, being reasonable, and being rational. So let's talk about, for social media, what platforms you should focus on and how much time you should focus on them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and the list goes on. It really depends on a variety of factors. It's going to be different for everybody. You want to figure out what makes sense for your niche, the value you find in social media and in the particular platform, the amount of resources at your disposal, so the amount of money and time you have, but especially time, and of course, your level of comfortability with the particular platforms. So, for example, what makes sense for your niche? TikTok, for example, is really big on like dance challenges. Okay, how do you take vegan activism and combine that with dance challenges? I don't really know. It's not something I do. But if it is something you do, then it makes sense for you to focus a lot on TikTok. And then furthermore, if you are totally uncomfortable doing dance challenges, then maybe it makes sense not to focus your efforts on TikTok. Maybe focus it on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or another platform. So this is a very long-winded way of saying that there is no golden rule about how much time you should focus on platforms or which platforms you should focus on. I do want to talk briefly about the pros and cons of what I like to call the big three: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So Twitter. The biggest benefit of Twitter is how retweets can extend the reach of your tweets. So when someone chooses to retweet your tweet, that tweet then goes into the news feeds of other people. And this can exponentially give your posts more views. And so just over the last year or so, I think I've had about 25 million views of my tweets, but I have 100,000 followers. So if you do the math there, I am getting exponentially more views of my tweets than those who follow me. And what that means is that the retweet button is incredibly powerful for getting a lot of people to see your content. You can also tweet often with almost a little downside. It's culturally appropriate and acceptable to tweet very often. You can enter into dialogue with almost anybody. So pretty much everybody with power, if you think about politicians, journalists, celebrities, and so on, they are on social media. And so you can kind of enter yourself into dialogue with them in a way. The downsides is that Twitter is very popular with some people, but a total mystery to others. People tweet often, and so it can be hard to stand out. There's a lot of misinformation on the platform, and there are a lot of trolls out there. For Instagram, the pros and cons. It's very community focused, so you can find lots of accounts out there who focus very much on the specific niches that you are interested in. And there's a very consistent feel and experience. Even as Instagram has introduced new features over the years, they've always had a very consistent experience when you open up the Instagram app. Unlike other platforms, which have really changed over the years, Instagram offers a very consistent experience. And you can find like-minded individuals very easily through hashtags, location tags, and tag posts. The downsides, and this is the biggest downside by far with Instagram, is that there's no share function. So if someone sees your post in their newsfeed, there is no real way for them to share that post to their newsfeed. They can share your post to their stories, but it's not quite the same thing. And so what that means is you ultimately end up reaching mostly the people who've already opted into following you, which can be good in other ways. But as far as like reaching the general public with the message of the animal's plight, which should be our number one focus with social media, it's really difficult to do that. With Facebook. So Facebook, the biggest pro is the number of users worldwide. It's by far the most popular social media platform, over 1 billion, possibly 2 billion users. And so the reach of your posts can be huge because of the share button. So similar to how I talked up the tweet button or the retweet button earlier, well, the share button on Facebook is really amazing as well. Also, Facebook's done a really good job at deeply integrating itself into our many facets of our life. So we have so many of our friends, family, and colleagues there. We are often using Facebook Messenger as a way of communicating with others. Facebook events are a big thing. And then Facebook groups. So, there's, I'm pretty sure there's a London Vegans Facebook group, right? So whatever your interest is, there are groups around this interest. Fun fact, I like an obscure genre of music. And so I am in a Facebook group for this obscure genre of music. And it's very convenient. I learn lots of new things about this obscure genre of music. I find new bands because of this Facebook group. So there's so many great ways that Facebook has really integrated itself into our lives. The biggest downside with Facebook is that the algorithm is cutthroat. So if your post does not get decent engagement, it's just going to be dropped out of news feeds and seen by almost no people. And so you might end up just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks over time, because Facebook can be really cutthroat. So let's talk about how to get more followers. This is a question I get asked all the time, and for good reason, because more followers, it means that more people are going to be reached on social media. And so that's important, because you want to get more of an impact. More followers means more reach, which means more impact for animals. So first of all, this might seem so obvious, but post good content. People want to follow accounts that post good content, and they don't want to follow accounts that post garbage content. So find out what the content is that your audience wants to see and post that stuff. And you should be paying attention to what's working and what's not working on social media, so you really understand that. Shares and retweets, that's a really big way you get more followers, because your posts then go into the news feeds of others and people discover your account through that. External engagement, so engaging with accounts who you don't currently follow. So let's say you want to find other vegan Twitter accounts. Search #vegan on Twitter and engage with a bunch of the posts that you see. And you'll be engaging with a lot of people who don't currently follow you. You'll be putting yourself on their map, and maybe they'll follow you as a result. Engage internally. So people who are liking and replying to your tweets and your posts, engage with those. And then, of course, the little things. So many of the things in this presentation, the little things really add up to be a lot. So what actions actually take on social media? You can do a variety of things. You can share posts from others. So these are some tweets of mine which other people shared. So it's a video of a crab eating a cherry. It's a video of me talking about the hypocrisy of how we love pets, but then abuse farm animals. And there's one more tweet there. And people saw my tweet and they retweeted it. And that is something you can do. You can see posts from others and retweet it or share it. And you will be amplifying their message. And that saves you maybe to come up with a whole message yourself. Engage in dialogue. You all might appreciate this because you're in the UK. Well, like 3 or 4 years ago, Michael Gove, I don't know how you say his name, but at the time he was the Environment Secretary for the UK, and he posted a pro cow milk tweet. And I thought that was so silly, because we all know here that the environmental damage that animal agriculture and dairy farming does to the environment. So I saw the hypocrisy here. And so I engaged in dialogue. So I replied to his tweet, and I'm happy to say that my tweet ended up getting more engagement and more likes and replies and comments than his tweet. Post your origin story. So talk about how you came to be the activist you are today. Because people really care about this stuff. I swear, people want to know your story. Talk about your experiences with animals. Other ideas for actions you can take on social media: post the great plant-based food that you're eating, and how your dog might try and eat it as well. Use humor from time to time. So humor is a really good way of reaching people in a way that maybe they otherwise don't take in messages, but humor they can connect with. And then, of course, above all, make sure you expose cruelty, expose the reality that animals are facing behind the closed doors of factory farms, slaughterhouses, and so on. Talk about your relationships with animals. Why is this important? Because people care and people want to understand why you are the person you are today and why you find animals to be so important and worth our consideration. This is my cat named Scoop. He was a three-legged cat who lived a really, really good life. And I shared, really special times with him. And he really played a big impact in my role becoming an animal advocate. And so I talk about him from time to time. Ask people to take action on the platform that they are on. So when you are asking people to take action, don't ask them to go to another platform. So if you're on Instagram, don't tell them to go to your Facebook page. If you're on Twitter, don't tell them to go to your Facebook page. Ask people to take action where they are. So here, I ask people to retweet it. So that doesn't require opening up a different app or taking some other external action. I'm asking people to retweet this tweet. And I asked them this and they listened and they did it because this tweet ended up getting seen over 7 million times. Know your audience. So we talked earlier about this, how you shouldn't always have the same approach. And you should understand that even if you're like the most hardcore of vegans, you probably have a lot of people who follow you who aren't vegan. And if you are using social media well and you're getting shares of your content, you have to understand that most of those people who are seeing your shared content aren't likely vegan. And so you really want to appeal to as many people as possible. Sometimes less is more. So this tweet was like a 5-second video of a dog with a newborn piglet with a caption that was 7 words followed by 1 emoji. And the tweet did really, really well and was seen over 1 million times. And then when in doubt, post about piglets, okay? People love piglets. I don't know why, what it is, but they are just universally loved. And don't be accusatory. So we talked earlier about this. While it may make us feel good, by being accusatory, we can really turn a lot of people off. And you also have to remember that most people who are on social media aren't even engaging. And so you might reply to a person on who commented on your Facebook page, and you may want to be, accuse them of being, a speciesist, or accuse them of, being a terrible person because of the choices that they're making that abuse animals or whatever. But while that is probably not even going to influence them in any positive way, you also have to remember that many people are going to observe that comment. And if they see you, if let's say, 20 non-vegans see your comment and it's, really, really low like that, it might turn a lot of them off to the idea of one day becoming vegan because they now have kind of this bad taste in their mouth. So we really need to work every day to kind of break vegan stereotypes and really welcome people and be as compassionate as possible because we want to be as effective for animals as possible. For profile photos, you want to do something that's a little bit professional for Twitter, something your friends and family would appreciate for Facebook, and you could do something a little bit artsy or edgy on Instagram. And don't put all of your plant-based just eggs into one basket. So what do I mean by this? I mean, don't focus all of your energy on one social media platform, because if you focus all of your energy on one platform and that platform goes belly up or falls out of favor with the general public, then you'll have built up all that effort for nothing. I mean, when is the last time anybody heard from MySpace Tom? Organize your content. And I think we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes left, and then the rest of the time, I will take questions, and I know Brian will be facilitating that. So with organizing your content, have all of your content in one central location. So if you have photos from an animal sanctuary, maybe photos or videos from an undercover investigation you did, or from, even just photos of your cat. Have all this stuff in one organized central location, because then you can access that from anywhere. It'll be well organized rather than in just like one massive folder on your phone. And you can share that content easily with others if needed. Post a blend of various kinds of posts. So don't just do photos. Don't just do sad stuff. Do a combination of videos, photos, text, links, polls, events. Do happy stuff, sad stuff, educational stuff, funny stuff. Do a variety of things, both in types of posts and the emotional content of posts. Don't post too much or too infrequently. Why? If you post too much, people are going to be annoyed with you and maybe eventually unfollow you. If you post too infrequently, you're going to really miss a huge opportunity to inspire people and influence people, and they might even forget that you exist. Here's some other things to take into consideration. And I'm going to go through this real quick. Post natively to every platform. So platforms will make it easy for you to automatically cross-post between platforms. Don't do that. Post natively to each platform. Late morning, early afternoon, the best kind of post, particularly in the time zone where you have the most followers. Keep your captions short and sweet. So 80% of mine are short, like 1 to 3 sentences long. Maybe 20% are longer than that. Make posts emotional. Add emotion to posts. Don't look at social media as just emotion, as documentation. It is about inspiring people to make a difference for animals, not just a place to document your 140 photos from Greece, from your vacation in Greece. Use emojis. So 1 to 3 emojis is ideal per post. Any more than that, it's overkill. Use social media to network. Put your Facebook friends into lists so that you can keep track. Especially it's useful if you were going to travel somewhere and you have a Facebook group that is maybe, Vegans of London, for example. Remember that most users on social media are observers. We talked about this earlier. Make sure your accounts are public. So if you have a really good reason to keep them private, that's fine. But I really, really recommend keeping your accounts public so that you can reach as many people as possible. Tag people. So tag people because this is going to encourage them to engage with your posts. You're going to help build that connection with them on social media. You'll direct people to places that you want, you're trying to direct people to. Pin valuable posts to the top of your profile. You can do this with Twitter, with Instagram, or with Facebook pages. When you share other people's posts, add your own caption. When you invite to Facebook events, invite in waves, starting with the people who are most likely to actually attend your event. Have an experimental mindset. So with social media and in the digital realm, just constantly throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. Remember that video content is best and is the future of social media. Ads, paying for posts, really not worth it unless these two things are always happening. One, the post is very, very important to you. So let's say it's about an event that you need to get bodies to. But then also it's a post that is not going to get engagement organically. If both of those things happen, then the case can be made to pay for posts, but I really, really don't recommend paying for posts, at least that often, because you really can make a really big impact for animals on social media without having to pay. Experiment with new features. Why is this important? Because social media platforms want you to use new features. And so therefore you're going to be prioritized in news feeds if you're using these new features. And then of course, don't hit the like button on your own posts. We already know you like the post, otherwise you wouldn't have posted it in the first place. So dealing with trolls and endless debates. This, as vegan activists, we know it can happen all the time. People often will want to debate us and talk to us about, why we shouldn't be vegan, why we shouldn't be wasting our time fighting for this cause, whatever the case. Don't waste your time. Why? Because the amount of impact you can make focusing on other people, on people you can reach, is just exponentially going to do more good than spending minutes or hours or days going back and forth with somebody who's probably not going to change their mind in the first place. I have 2 mini assignments for you. So spend an hour looking at your own or at social media presence of other groups who you like. So look at other social media or other vegan organizations or other vegan activists, and focus on what they are doing, what seems to be working for them. And also notice what they aren't doing. And then also pay attention to what they are doing that doesn't seem to be working, because you do not need to entirely reinvent the wheel here. The second assignment, spend 30 minutes looking at your own social media presence. So look at your own past posts from recent months and see what's working and what hasn't been working, and let that guide you in the future in terms of what you can, what you should be focusing on posting more of in the future, and what you should be posting less of. I also want to offer a 15% discount to my fully self-guided online courses that are focused on social media advocacy. So I have a course called Mastering Social Media to Change the World, one called Mastering Twitter to Change the World, and one called Mastering Instagram to Change the World. And these are full self-guided online courses that I co-developed with a group called Advocacy Collaborative. And you can enroll at advocacycollab.com. And as members of London Vegans, I created a discount code for you. So use discount code London Vegans for 15% off if you want to enroll. I'm going to leave you with this quote from the great late Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is so relevant for us as animal advocates using social media, because it is so important for us to really get people to take the animals' issues seriously and to make them feel something, to make them feel inspired to create a better world for animals. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Let me okay, see if I can exit full screen and tag myself. Okay, thank you very much for that. There's an awful lot of information there, overloaded. If anybody has any questions, could I ask if you are happy to be on screen, you can raise your hand. Alternatively, if you want to type the question into the chat box, we can take questions there. I've already got a question from, or was it gone now? From Hazel. I'm just seeing where it's gone. And just a sort of very relevant one, a very relevant question, which I was going to ask as well. So I've got a lot of vegan followers. I'm talking to the converted. How do I get more non-vegan or animal-loving followers?
Great question. And so this is something you should keep in mind. So if your advocacy is on a platform where shares are a thing, so like Facebook or Twitter, then what's great about this is that they can share your content. So share your posts or retweet your posts, and then that goes into their news feeds. And odds are the most of their followers aren't vegan. And so the more shares your posts get, the less and less vegan your audience is. So if your post gets seen by 10,000 people, odds are at least 8,000 or 9,000 of those people aren't vegan. So if your posts are only being seen by the people who have already opted into following you, then yes, you are preaching to the converted. But with the share function of social media platforms, you are able to reach a large audience who isn't already vegan. And so remember that you are making a really big impact on those people for sure.
Thanks for that. Son asks, I'm not quite sure I understand this. How do you avoid losing yourself? And it stops. So, Son, I don't know whether you want to unmute yourself and just say what you were planning saying. Or you need to type the rest of the question. Okay, we'll come back to that. I've got something which is, The importance of hashtags on posts, both in, I know it's very important on Instagram. How important in Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, so I think the power of hashtags is a little bit overstated. You can reach more people by using them. With Instagram, you actually don't want to do an overload. So once upon a time, you could do up to 30. I mean, you still can technically do up to 30 hashtags in a post, but your Instagram is really prioritized having smaller number of hashtags. And so it would be better to do maybe like 5 or 6 hashtags and trying to incorporate as many hashtags within the caption as possible, rather than trying to get hashtags, out like a word vomit of hashtags at the end of your post. As for Twitter and Facebook, I mean, the same concept stands. I like to throw in maybe 1 to 3 hashtags in a post, but any more than that, and it's just going to look a little bit messy. And so, I think the benefits of having a nice clean caption almost outweigh the benefits of doing a bunch of hashtags.
Any other questions before? Otherwise, I'll ask. Still waiting for the one from Sun to come through. I know there's 1 or 2 people on here who do use social media quite extensively. There'll be others. You're taking a selfie?
Yeah, I'm taking a picture of everybody so that I can remember all the amazing people who are here.
Yeah. There's 1 or 2 people, unfortunately, we're having problems getting through. I'll just after this formal meeting, we're having an informal one. I'll find out what happened there, but there should be some more people attending. So, I mean, in terms of what I'm doing, I'm just looking online. I've got 16,000 followers on Twitter, but they don't all engage. I mean, I for myself, I've got a website which is Vegan London, and there's a Twitter feed which is London Vegan, and I would generally in the morning I go and search for some vegan news. I see, and prominent, most of it is plant-based stuff rather than maybe about some animal issues or animal cruelty. But let's supposing there is a new vegan food product being launched. So somebody's already done the article. All I'm doing is pressing a button and then it goes into my Twitter feed. And what you're suggesting from what you said earlier is that I should, but actually adding a few comments to that. So rather than just posting their details, I should be adding in some extra comments saying, this is wonderful news, maybe we should give it a try or something like that, and try and get some engagement rather than just informing.
Exactly, because people care about what you think. They don't really care about what some random news publication thinks. So they want to hear your words. And also you as kind of like a thought leader in the movement, you should be providing your thoughts on this topic and get people excited about it. Or maybe you think it's horrible what they're doing. And so you want to say that as well. So you want to put stuff in your own words. And so that would require just copying the URL of the news article and then going to Twitter, opening a tweet or tweeting, using the link, and it'll auto-populate with the story, and you add your own language. And this is the best way to do it.
Good, thank you for that. I'll ask Sun again if he's, how do you avoid losing your own self and identity in the pressures to complete or perform in the social media maelstrom?
Maelstrom? What does that word mean?
Okay. I don't know. I said, Sun, I don't know if you are able to unmute. I can't see you on screen. If you wanted to vocalize that. I'm not sure whether you're referring specifically to John or you're talking about yourself. So,
well, I guess I can speak to what I can guess the question is about. And I will just say that, like, you don't need to look at social media as a competition with others. Just look at it as an opportunity to help animals. And the more people that you can reach on social media, the more good that you'll do for animals. And it's a simple concept. Just like when I was leafletting, handing out, pamphlets on street corners, 15 years, 12, 13 years ago. If I handed out 1,000 instead of 100, I knew that I was doing 10 times the good. So it's the same concept with social media, and you don't need to reach thousands or millions of people in a year to make an impact. But the more people you reach, the more impact you can make. So again, if you currently use social media and you're getting 20, 30 likes in your posts, and your posts are seen by a few dozen people, hey, maybe you can make that double or triple that over the next year, and that is going to mean more of a difference for animals. And so you really just want to definitely keep that in mind. And of course, looking at social media as a way to amplify work you're already doing. So by no means am I saying stop doing all other work that you're doing for animals. Like I know that Margaret, for example, does incredible work for animals on social media, but every day she goes out and feeds so many animals in New York City who need their, who depend on her. And, you do both. So you can do both. So don't look at social media as the only thing that you should be focusing on, but definitely at least look at it as a supplement and something that you can definitely, amplify your own efforts with.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm not sure whether I fully understand this question from Steen, I think it is, about your personal experience in using social media advertisements to reach more people that are not yet converted with a giveaway leaflet. Does that make sense?
Sort of. So I don't pay for posts. So if that's the question, this is like all of my social media efforts are organic. So what I've basically just done over the years is look at what people tend to engage with on social media and kind of tweaked my approach. And as a result, over time, I've just kind of learned, okay, people really like to see this kind of video at this length. People don't want to see, too much of this. So I try to find this right balance. And so that's kind of, I guess, the very, very short answer to that question is that I don't think you need to be paying. I talked earlier about when you do want to pay for posts. I don't feel like I fully answered that question. So if the person who asked it wants to clarify.
If you want to unmute and add to that, Steen?
Yeah, sure. Because I did a lot of social media advertisements in the past, and you can actually reach a lot of people with that. Although, the word advertisement has connotations, but I guess that if you have some giveaway leaflet with 5 steps to eat more plant-based, then you lead someone to a website where they can actually download this leaflet. Perhaps you can, have some more impact on people that are on the, on the edge of, making the step. So I was wondering whether you have experience with that or heard people do it.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, Stan. So yeah, that's really great. So so that is sort of something separate than what, my presentation is mainly for vegans who just want to use social media better for social media in the digital realm. But there's a whole nother category of people and organizations who use money, often a lot of money, to run advertising on Facebook and other platforms to help animals. And I think that what they're doing is really, really good. So I used to work for a group called the Humane League. And with, we had somebody whose full-time job was literally just tweaking advertisements on Facebook to reach as many people as possible. And, those were paid ads. And those, were reaching people all over the globe. And that was a really good use of funds. So I'm more on the organic side, or I am on the organic side, but there are people on the paid side. I think that really is a good tool to help animals. And should anybody be interested in that, I could connect them with, people who I know who do that, all the time. And that's a good use of, that can be a good use of funds.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Shabari was asking, I don't know whether you've answered this, how do I get more followers on Instagram?
So I talked about it earlier, a few ideas. So posting good content, of course. I would say regularly using stories, engaging with others. So engaging, like finding people who are like-minded. So figure out the lowest hanging fruit, right? So let's say you're a vegan food account, right? You're posting lots and lots of good like vegan burgers, vegan fish and chips or whatever. And, you want to engage with those posts look at like posts that are focusing on that kind of stuff, like vegan food, vegan burgers, so on. Engage with those posts from people who you don't currently follow. And some of those people will follow you as a result. And I have a whole Instagram course, and I do a really deep dive into the different ways in which you can get more followers on Instagram. So lots and lots of ways to do it there.
Yeah. And particularly with Instagram, should you be following lots more people in order that they will hopefully follow back?
The follow for follow strategy, I wouldn't really recommend on Instagram. Something you do kind of want to have like a slightly better ratio, where you have more followers than you're following, just because for credibility purposes. But it's not a huge deal. But like there are definitely limitations with that follow for follow strategy as well. Like you can only do so many in a given day. Instagram doesn't like people doing this strategy, so they're not necessarily going to try and make it easier for you to do so. So there are some problems with that strategy for Instagram. So I really wouldn't recommend that most of the time.
Okay, thanks for that. And our very last question from Paul: Do younger people tend to use Instagram more than older people who tend to use Facebook? And if so, why?
Yeah, good question, Paul. So different social media platforms appeal to different segments of the population. So TikTok, Instagram, they appeal to younger people. Facebook appeals a little bit to older people. And there's benefits to both of those things. Like I wouldn't say any social media platform is the only platform we should focus on. I had a few slides dedicated to this fact, actually, where I talked about, different platforms are better for different people. And so, Facebook with older people, maybe some of them are retired and they might have more time on their hands. So they might have more time to share your posts. That's a good thing. But then younger people, it's good to appeal to them because they have many more years of purchasing power in front of them. They usually have bigger social networks and circles of influence. And they're more open to trying new ideas. So there's lots of different people to reach on different platforms. And this is always changing. 10 years ago, the average Facebook audience or Facebook user was younger. But now, over time, they have skewed a little bit older and older. And this is always going to be changing for all the platforms out there, which is another reason too that you should be focusing on all of the platform, all the emerging platforms as well, and focus. We're just trying to remember which. Just try and be aware of the new platforms that are out there. And so for me, something I always do is as soon as I hear about a new platform, I jump on it. I create an account. I don't really do anything with it, but I have it there in case that platform does take off one day.
Okay. Paul, did you have anything to add to that?
No, that question has been answered good or well. Thanks.
Great. Thanks very much, Paul. I'm going to bring the formal meeting to a close. I'd like to thank John again for presenting to us. And it's been, I said, there's a whole mass of information now I need to go over. You will be able to, those watching live, you will be able to watch this video when it's on YouTube. For those watching on YouTube, the links to John's offer for his courses for London Vegans and all the other things will be below. And for those also on Facebook, I'll posting the links as well. If you'll all be kind enough just to unmute yourselves, I'd like to show John a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.